I am aware of the fact that the technology session is very late, and therefore we actually will have a little reward in the form of champagne and cocktails awaiting us very, very soon. But please bear with us when we will be discussing API connectivity, revenue generation, revenue optimization with our amazing panelists. With that, I would like to welcome the creme de la creme of hospitality technologists and industry innovators. So we have Andrew Kitchell, the founder and CEO of Wheelhouse. Wheelhouse is a fantastic revenue management tool delivering short-term and mid-term data. We have, and most importantly, Andrew is flying all the way from San Francisco for this session, so thank you so much for that. We have Florian Montag, from Apaleo. I'll actually sit down. Florian Apaleo, the Director of Business and Development. And we have Andrew Conrad-Turner from Cartus. Cartus probably does not need any further introduction, being the leading company in relocation management. So wonderful. We were also looking for common points before we started our discussion. We do not play piano, all of us. However, what really unites us as a panel is our passion to change the industry, to genuinely contribute to the digitization of corporate housing through amazing, smart, and powerful technology. So today we're going to be discussing extended stay optimization, and particularly looking at it from the angles of buyers, but also technology providers. So with that, I would like to ask my first question to Andrew Wheelhouse, and that is, why is the extended stay market so behind leisure and travel? Why do we lack the right technology?
Why is it so behind? Good question. I actually don't have a perfect answer for that question. I think what we see, though, is Wheelhouse, first of all, we work on revenue management, pricing, and financial intelligence for primarily short-term rentals, but increasingly corporate rentals as well. And what we've seen there is people are not using data in almost any fashion to inform how they can be pricing supply. That means people are often looking at kind of cost-plus pricing or other rudimentary, maybe kind of basic tools, when there are opportunities now to look at the vast world of data and inform everything from better pricing decisions, merchandising decisions, locations, et cetera. So I would say, I don't know why it's so behind. I do know there's a big opportunity to employ data now.
Thank you so much. Andy, I would like to ask you my next question. So as a buyer, what do you think that is required in order to support that automation? I know that corporate requires a lot of compliance, but obviously it is necessary, especially in current environment, to look for more automation. So what are your thoughts on that?
That's right. It's a big question. And talking to corporates about it, a lot of things that they're looking for, in the background to begin with, it's the validity and the confidence that they can have, especially as we move into a world where we are looking at instant access to data, API feeds that are going to be passed from supplier to RMC to corporate across the board. They really want that data validity to be perfect, so they are comfortable introducing it into their systems, not only from a security point of view, but knowing that the answers that your mobility people and your HR people are going to stand up and present to the rest of the business when they are making the case to advocate for mobility and funding these programs, to make sure they are credible and to make sure that the numbers they're presenting stand up. And the other part where we need it, where we are able to really leverage this data, is with imagination. I see out in the marketplace there's a wealth of information that's available. You could gather and slice the information in infinite numbers of ways. What we really need, and where it is the most powerful, is when we can apply imagination to that and actually use it for meaningful change, to actually drive the things that we want it to drive, be it cost optimization, be it incredible user experiences. So it's not only the facility for having the data, but a platform that enables its use and an imagination to use it optimally.
Thank you so much. We have seen probably the craziest year in global mobility, where we had an incredible demand, very, lack of supply, lack of staff, and the fact that a lot of the bookings today in this industry are happening offline is a problem, because it's not effective. It's a not effective way to manage properties when you don't really have access to a property management software operating extended stays. So I wanted to ask you, Florian, what is from your perspective the required features and tools to deliver from, again, the property management software perspective to help operators manage extended stays in an automated way?
I think that's a very good question. I mean, just giving a bit more context to where we come from. So we're a property management platform, so that's the core category like PMS, even though we see ourselves a bit different. And we come from the hotel sector more. So we work with a lot of hotels, but we actually moved into the mid-length stay or extended stay as well, because you have more and more hybrid models, more and more extended stay also during COVID tried actually to sell to typical hotel guests, and you can also see more hotels actually moving into that space. So the technology already exists a lot in hotels, and it's all about being able to offer ARAI, so availabilities, rates, and inventory. So this ability to also connect to different booking engines, to different channels, being able to manage your inventory there. But in the extended stay sector, a lot of the systems do not really can't manage nights, so they manage maybe months or weeks. So it's very difficult to have kind of certain patterns or things like that. So from our side, we were able to actually move more into the extended stay sector through our additional value adds, which were very much in demand from service departments, especially in the European German-speaking markets. But it's actually, the technology is there, and it's coming a lot from the hotel sector. And I think it's a lot about this hybrid models, mixing everything together.
Thank you so much. Going back again to this crazy 2022, from your perspective, Andy, what would make the live, or how rather would live booking make the life of assignees easier, and also obviously the relocation consultants?
As you mentioned, it works on both of those platforms, and it totally depends on the model that the corporate is operating, the preferences of the individual, more so. And I think lots of us can be guilty sometimes. We look at what the emergent talent is. Years ago, conferences within our team, I forced all of my group to take a drink anytime someone mentioned millennials. It's the same with Gen Z now. People can become very fixated on serving the newest customers to the market, and sometimes forget that all the other ones didn't disappear. They are still here. So more and more with multi-generational workforces and the diversity of people's approach that is incredibly important now, it needs to be accommodated in the platforms that we use. I love technology. I spend a lot of my time looking at it, but we are still in a world where sometimes you need that human intervention as well. And sometimes there are people that would prefer that and they want it. So having an omnipresent delivery model which can serve any type of need is what will have those benefits now, whether there's the involvement of a consultant or that platform is powerful enough to help that individual. And I think we're all increasingly demanding of answers immediately now as well. So to the example of your platform, knowing availability straight away for those extended stays in particular, incredibly powerful individual level. Scale that up to a corporate level, and when you're using consultants to help guide those choices as well, or in enacting the will of a corporate's policy to make sure they are adhered to, giving them the tools to be able to serve their customers and say, yep, this is available, this hits these parameters, this hits these very specific and more diverse parameters, be they for sustainability, be they for the social aspects that we look for. Being able to hit those markets and hit markets that are important to anyone, no matter how small that group is, incredibly important, incredibly powerful.
Thank you so much. Cloud-based inventories definitely means that we have access to data. can be short-term data, it can be extended state data. In any case, it is really important because there's different user case scenarios on how to leverage and potentially monetize that data. So let's discuss this a little bit in more depth, starting by Andrew from Wheelhouse. And I would love to really understand, how do you support the operators in order to navigate the demand? So do I cater to short-term demand? Do I cater to mid-term demand? And how do I optimize my yield?
Great question. So first of all, I think I'll share that I've long thought of like what happened with Airbnb a decade ago was a merchandising revolution as much as anything. And what came to matter all of a sudden was your porch, pool, patio, Wi-Fi, parking, pet policy, cancellation policy, all had a differentiated value on a different day, right? I think the opportunities for mid-length space to think about merchandising in a similar way, I think a lot of the things that people were looking for when they started to select what was then alternative inventory is going to drive potential merchandising opportunities for the mid-length or corporate space as well. So I think the opportunity at hand for folks is to think about optimizing their supply, whether it's some mid-length 30-day plus, some short-term. You can look at demand for each type of kind of booking length of stay to figure out how you should optimize a property, a building, an individual unit, whatever it may be. So the demand data is out there. You can see it in real time, essentially, at least 24-hour delay. And you can leverage that to optimize your asset really at any time. So that is the operational advantage of using data, real-time booking patterns to inform how your place should be optimized.
Thank you so much, Florian. Can you tell us a little bit more how, through a property management software platform, we can leverage on this data? Because I know that you're open API and API first company. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, so maybe API first, what does that mean? That means that every functionality we develop, we first develop in our API, and then even our front end connects via APIs to the logic, so to say. So this gives 100% access of data for all our customers, as well as third-party apps being able to use these functionalities in a headless element. So exactly elements what Andrew also just mentioned about being able to go into the direction of attribute-based selling, for example. This is something which most property management system can't handle. But when, for example, what we enable is that you can have booking engines which connect, which then enable the customer to be able to say, I want to have a bedroom with, I don't know, a balcony, etc., and I can book that. And especially in the extended stay segment, you can therefore maybe sell elements of a room much better because they stay longer in that room. And for example, for a smoker who wants to book an extra balcony for his room, they will be willing to pay the extra 20 euros or whatever the night or pounds here because they don't want to go downstairs every time. And so these are kind of patterns which you can identify because you can suddenly start selling and also building your dashboards based on, okay, what has been bought by whom, and really build all of your own reports, because this is something, again, with a lot of traditional property management systems, it's you have to pay them to be able to access your data, you have to pay them to set up a report, and then they have a lot of reports, but once you want to slice and dice it, it's not possible. And I think that's the most important element, is give access to that data and allow the operators to make their own reports, to make their own judgments, because often as a vendor you can't think that far, or you have so many new systems, so many new processes coming in place that you need to let the operator have his data and make their own analysis, or maybe combine data from different systems.
I'm a huge fan on itemization, but I can see that Andrew wants to comment on this. So yeah, go ahead.
I just want to share, I think Apoleo's approach is so interesting, because when you think about the technology stack required to operate in the future, you're looking at, yes, property management, distribution, guest communications, revenue management, operations management, et cetera. There's so many different components. And the approach of Apoleo to be API first, I've started to say that interconnectivity is not a feature, it's the foundation. And I think the approach that you have is going to enable operators to pull out pieces of technology and kind of plug and play the best piece for their team at any time. And I think it's a fascinating and important evolution. So just wanted to name that on top of what you shared.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm a huge fan, by the way, of the itemization of the different asset classes across the hotels and the cross-selling and upselling, but we're going to get there in the next part. I wanted to go back again to the data and really understand from your perspective, Andy, how do you think that the corporates can leverage of this on this midterm data? So booking data, obviously ADRs, pricing forecast. What are your thoughts?
I think we can go back to what we heard Cohen say at the beginning of the session here. The smart application and the intelligence and the guidance you can give with good data, good, valid, robust, diverse data is so powerful when you can use it effectively. So from where we sit as an RMC, imagine all of this great information we're gathering from the corporate housing space, combine it with what we see from the shipment of goods, the onboarding of people, helping them find houses to purchase at the right time, as per Cohen's example. If we have all of this data together and we can look at it and it is robust enough for us to be able to slice it and use it in these ways, we can actually make transformative change to programs and make actual meaningful recommendations for program changes. Now, whether that's to do with what you support within your policy, adding more flexibility, for example, again, supporting a long-term stay versus immediate home purchase to help them make better investment decisions. If it's about the timing of your organization, hey, if you change this massive group move you're planning, if you are able to move that timing by a month or initiate it slightly earlier so we can make bookings in optimal times, this will potentially save you things we can quantify, data we can quantify with these great forecasting tools as well. So we can give quantifiable change, quantifiable impacts that we can make to these recommendations. For us, that is how we add value to the relationships we have across all levels, by putting all those things together effectively. So the wealth of this data that this can provide, it's absolute gold for this industry to be able to make really meaningful recommendations.
I agree, it's absolute gold, and I am very surprised that it's still missing, right, in the industry. So, Andy, what are you guys doing in order to really collect the extended stay data? Why there's only short-term data currently in the market available?
There's actually much more short-term rental data. I actually think this is one of the reasons we're 80 to 90% there, as opposed to more in the mid-length and corporate side now. So we still look at it as we are not yet at the point where we can make automated recommendations on price in the mid-length space like we can do in the short-term space. We're definitely not there. We can offer data to people and kind of allow them to use more rule-based pricing and to kind of watch their own booking patterns in order to drive their own results. But I would say I think the corporate space for our team is just so exciting. When we look at, we talked a lot about kind of relocation and corporate travel. I also look at what's happening in the American multifamily space in particular, where you had an announcement last week that Airbnb had partnered with 11 or 12 of the major multifamily companies. And the truth is, most major multifamily companies are bringing supply over to mid-length stays now. So it's like, okay, it's about to be a major investment area across the US. I do expect the data environment to improve rapidly. We'd love to obviously work with you on some fun things. But yeah, the data environment right now is not as robust on the corporate side as short-term rentals, and yeah, that needs to change.
Thank you so much. I have another question, because you've mentioned multifamily, so let's sort of sideways into asset diversity. I would love to ask Florian that question: how, as a software provider, manage different asset types throughout the software?
So that's a good question, and I mean, for us, the approach how we were able to do that is that we decided we can't do everything. We really just focus on the core property management functionalities and enable the best connectivity, because you know, there's a different booking engine which focuses on long stay versus short stay. There's different revenue management system. All of these elements are so different that if we try to do it ourselves, we will limit because we cannot develop everything and we cannot be the best at everything. However, especially also the property management system category itself is so complex especially if you're international and that, it needs a full focus. For example, when you look at the extended stay compared to the short stay, you have different requirements in the different countries. Here in the UK, where you have suddenly, with 28 days, you reduce the VAT from 20 to 5%. Then in France, you have other requirements. In Germany, you have different requirements. So to be able to cater to all of that, on the one side, we really try to really focus on our core and be able to let our customers choose from our app store the best things or build it themselves. And that's, again, like quite a cool thing. In the US, we have an extended stay player who's growing rapidly. And we, as a platform, are not yet ready for the US, so to say, to really cater to everything. And there, you have different taxes per state and city, etc. And they've just built their own automations on top of it, of the APIs, to solve their own issues. And this is, again, we're in a world where we just need to give flexibility and let players choose and bring it together and not be the PMS vendor traditionally who always wants to do everything themselves because they can say, hey, we can get a bigger share of the IT budgets from the providers. But it's really going more like in other industries, open platform, access to data, and then, let it go from there.
Yeah, that is an incredible wealth of complexities when it comes to really managing the property management software on a really global level. I wanted to ask you, Andy, when it comes to the complexity of data that you're managing, are you also checking the different VATs per market or any other data points other than the pricing?
Well, we can look at the all-in fees of a booking. We can see that, not in every case, but in most cases. For us, the most important thing is our system basically regards the market as the ultimate source of truth. You can look at pricing signal, which is what supply hopes to achieve or thinks they might be able to achieve at a time. And then you have to watch the market book on specific inventory types as stay dates approach to really translate it. So we can look at a variety of fees, but also the market is a very good indicator of what's a quote unquote good value based on booking patterns. So I guess to answer your question, we see, depending on what the channel passes us or depending on what our customer passes us, we'll see in sometimes very complex fee structures, but everything feeds into an overall understanding of what the market is willing to pay.
Thank you so much. Let's talk a little bit more about flexible living and what does it mean really for the corporates. We've also touched upon the topic of upselling additional services. So what, from your perspective, Andy, can make the entire guest experience simpler, more welcoming to the corporates?
We've heard it a couple of times across the panels tonight. It's those things that make your life easier when you got there. We saw huge examples of this and great innovation and creativity during COVID because people's needs and people's day-to-day lives changed rapidly. You went from, potentially mingling with people who you're in the office with in your expat location in a lot of places, making new friends amongst your work colleagues, to that not really being the same thing anymore. And likewise, frequent travel back to your home state, town, country, not being readily available as well. So, the harsh reality was a lot of people who were on assignment during 2020, 2021, it was quite a lonely experience for them. So that priority to engage with local communities, uptake of local language lessons increased wildly, not just because people were sticking at home with nothing else to do, but because they want to engage more with those communities. So those great examples we heard in some of the short stay, mid-stay sessions earlier, actually having shared spaces where people can do co-working because they're not necessarily in an office anymore, having an on-site gym because maybe you're not there necessarily for quite long enough to warrant a gym membership straight away. We spoke to some people at some events in the last couple of months where they were actually offering services, particularly for interns and people who was moving as single people, to actually make friends, not necessarily just dating, because there are apps for that thing, but, make friends and find new hobbies in the places that they'd moved to. So it's a lot about making a house, a home, a lot quicker, I think, for a lot of people that's going to be valuable. And that comes for that diversity of what people need. Some people want that flexibility to get your subscription service, to get the shopping coming in early, to go to a club, to, if they've got kids and their stuff's being shipped over, if you have an Xbox in there for them, PlayStations are also available. These things that make their lives easier, quicker, are incredibly valuable, so they can focus on what we sometimes forget, is that these people are moving for a job and they've got that to deal with as well. So if you can make life comfortable and easy for them faster, it's incredibly valuable. And I think we spoke off mic here as well. As an organization, we do a lot with destination providers, you know, that know the countries that they're moving to, sometimes in big core markets, the cities very well. With the accommodation providers like yourself, the fantastic opportunity is that you are exactly in the neighborhoods where these people are. You're not from the country, you're not from the city. Your providers on the ground are from the street that these people are moving to. So you have an incredible wealth of local knowledge, and it's great that we can tap into that and offer these services and offer these diverse and unique choices for people. We talk about diversity and we immediately think about the boxes you tick on forms, when it is actually even more so now today, just about your personal traits. A member of my team told me that story that I shared with you. He walked into a Subway, the line was moving down, the person in front of him asked for his bread and nothing but black olives on it. And the bemused sandwich artist put it together for him, eventually found out a way to put it through the till and sent him on his way. And then they shared a smile after it finished. And the reality is, that person who wants just bread with a ton of black olives on it, that is a diversity of choice which we should be able to service for in the way we can serve to the people that want the most popular choices. So finding ways that we can manage even the most niche requests, if we can hit the mark on those, that is a huge deal to those people.
I love it. Our job should be how do we optimize and how do we make seamless the Subway experience in temp housing. With that, I would love to ask Florian as well. So if we're going back really to the itemization of the amenities. What are you guys seeing in terms of additional services that the guests are booking already today?
Yeah, I think we see a lot of diversity, and I think what is actually really interesting is more that adjacent sectors to hospitality become more and more kind of hospitality businesses. So when you look at senior living, for example, similar to co-living, etc., it's more and more of these areas become actually long stay or mid stay business where they want to sell additional services. So maybe they have additional sport facilities, maybe they have additional leisure facilities, F&B, etc. And all of this also needs to be somehow charged for, accounted for. So actually a lot of these operators also from senior living are looking now at hotels, are looking at extended stay and saying, okay, how can we maybe add a segment into it where we can sell more services. And this, we saw the big trend in student living and student housing maybe 5-10 years ago with the student hotels or the social hub today, and a lot of others coming into it where they say, okay, actually you can really combine both. You know, you can combine student housing for people who want to stay maybe a year with a hotel, and actually people will enjoy the vibe, and more younger people will actually want to go to these locations because it's not like a traditional hotel or etc. So I think we really see what as the biggest trend is more the hybrid concepts. It's not anymore this is a hotel, this is an extended stay, but different concepts in one building, and yeah, all the services around. And this needs to be catered to through technology, because you can't do that just manually.
I love it. We definitely see that convergence of assets within Alta Vita as well. So I wanted to ask my last question, which is going really back to the multifamily. Why, Andy, do you think it's such an underserved market from the technology perspective, and how can we improve that experience of the multifamily operators in order to cater to that midterm demand?
Yeah, I think most of the multifamily stack, at least in America, was built kind of before the notion of true digital access. Was built more for a long-term renter. I like to say when you talk to the major multifamily companies, a lot of their potential residents are coming in the door and they want fast, furnished, and flexible. They don't want to sign a year-long lease. So for the multifamily folks, everything from the locations to the building design to now the technology are changing and adapting. I think that is where the big opportunity is. Yes, some of it is still a bit down the road, but yeah, I think everything from, again, design to technology needs to just continue to move the direction it's moving for a very large opportunity to emerge or to continue to emerge in the multifamily sector.
All right, that's it, guys. I think that we're ready. Big round of applause for the panelists. Thank you so much, guys.